Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 60 of the Ham Radio Guy podcast. Whether you're traveling, living in an antenna-restricted area, or just want to control your shack from the comfort of your patio, Remote Ops opens a world of possibilities. We'll talk about the tools, the tech, the challenges, and the freedom it brings to hams of all license levels.
Welcome back to the Ham Radio Guy podcast, broadcasting from the W0MET studios. I'm Marvin, call sign W0MET, and I'm glad you're here as we get ready for even more amateur radio adventures. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or a long-time listener, thank you. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a big shout out to Dakota Lithium for supporting the podcast. I've been using their batteries for the past 3 years in every environment you can imagine. Freezing cold during winter field day, smeltering heat during the summer, and even soaking rain. And they haven't let me down. These batteries have traveled everywhere with me, from the back of my truck to carry-on flights, and they're still going strong. If you're looking for dependable, long-lasting power, check out Dakota Lithium at dakotalithium.com. Use code HAMRadioGuy at checkout for a discount. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you like to listen. And don't forget, you can also catch me over on YouTube. Leave a comment, good or bad. It helps the algorithm and it helps more people discover the show. Share it on your socials and let others know you're listening to the Ham Radio Guy podcast. You can also support the podcast by checking out the affiliate links in the show notes and over at patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy. Your support helps us keep the content coming and grow the community and bring even more gear reviews, tips, and ham radio inspiration. And this month, we're celebrating 4 years of this podcast. What started as a fun occasional hobby during COVID has grown into a consistent bi-weekly podcast with more subscribers, listeners, and patrons than I could ever imagine. And that would have at this point. I didn't, when I first started that, I didn't expect to really grow this into anything major at all. And I couldn't have done it without all of you becoming subscribers over on YouTube or Apple Podcast or wherever else. And, I really appreciate those comments. I would like to see more sometimes. We do appreciate it, and it's good to get some feedback. And if there's something a segment you'd like to hear more about, or you don't like the Ham Radio Guy joke or whatever it might be, I do appreciate those. It is good to hear from you. You can always email me too over at w0met@thehamradioguy.com. Well, it's been hot here in Western Mass lately, and a lot going on in the scenes. And I've got a lot of videos to finish, product reviews to edit, and a lot more content coming your way. So some days there just isn't enough hours in my day to get it all done. But we'll continue to move forward. I've got, a lot more content coming your way that I've got on my program schedule. So I hope you will continue to stay as a listener. And I appreciate you tuning in this week. With that, let's get into a little, see what's happening around the world. Katie Campbell, KE8LQR of Columbia, Ohio, has been selected as the 2025 Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Memorial Amateur Radio Newsline Young Ham of the Year. Katie, 17, is the daughter of Robert Campbell, KE8LYZ, and Colleen Campbell, KB8VAQ. Katie was introduced to ham radio at the age of 10 when her school started an amateur radio and electronics club. She was 5th grade middle school student at the time and quickly became licensed, advancing her way to an extra class ticket by the age of 11. An honor student heading into senior year of high school, Katie is the president of Columbia High School Amateur Radio Club, and she was introduced to the Morse code early on, and it became her favorite operating mode. With this, I also have another story. Just these two stories this week. This one's a little bit more sad. And many of you may have heard this already, but if you haven't, and if you own a Ham Shack hotline, you'll have to find another service. After 6 years of connecting amateur radio operators through its free VoIP, voice over IP telephone network, Ham Shack Hotline is officially shutting down. The announcement was made on the hamshackhotline.com website, confirming that the service, which provided hams with a dedicated internet-based phone system for quick and easy communication, is no longer operational. Well, it should say as of August 29th, 2025 here. Launched in 2018, Ham Shack Hotline became popular among the ham radio community for enabling station-to-station calling, emergency communication support, and collaboration across the globe. With spanning servers across North America and Europe, it offered a unique blend of modern tech and amateur radio spirit. The team behind Ham Shack Hotline thanked users for their support over the years, emphasizing that the network had served its purpose during key moments in ham radio operations. No specific reasons were given for the shutdown, though the message noted that evolving needs and technologies within the amateur radio world. That's all the news I have here with the amateur radio news with the release date of July 2025. It's now time for the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week, where Rick tells us the joke. The Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week is brought to you by Ham Radio Prep. Now here is Rick Garrett, N9 GSU, with today's Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week.
I am fascinated by robotics. That goes so well with the hobby of ham radio, and I recently decided to build myself a robotic child since I have no children of my own. He was always misbehaving. In the end, I had to ground him.
This has been the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week with Rick Garrett, N9 GSU. Turn in next week for another joke from Rick. HamRadioPrep.com, your fast track to getting licensed and on the air. Whether you're brand new to amateur radio or looking to upgrade your license, Ham Radio Prep makes it easy. Their online course and FCC-approved mobile-friendly design to help you pass your exam on the first try, even if you've never touched a radio before. Thousands of hams already passed with Ham Radio Prep, and I personally recommend it for anyone who wants to learn quickly and retain the knowledge that actually matters out in the field. Be ready to become a licensed ham or upgrade to general? Go out to hamradioprep.com and use my exclusive code HAMRadioGuy at checkout to save on your course. Don't wait, get licensed, get on the air, and join the amateur radio community today with hamradioprep.com. They have a great money-back guarantee. You can't beat it. You can find the link in the show notes. Well, if you have any questions, again, or you want to look out or find a way to reach out to me, W0MET at thehamradioguide.com. And remember, you can find all the affiliate discounts in the show notes of all episodes that help save yourself some money and support the show at the same time. Today, we're talking about something that revolutionizing the way hams operate: remote operations in amateur radio. Whether you're a seasoned operator looking to expand your reach or new hams without access to a home station, or remote operations that opens up a world of possibilities. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's talk about this exciting world of remote ham radio. Well, what is remote ham radio? I know a lot of people use it. I use it myself, and it's been a really great tool. It's really cool to have. The remote ham radio operation refers to controlling an amateur radio station over the internet or over a private network, allowing operators to transmit and receive from anywhere in the world. This means you can operate a high-end station from your laptop, a tablet, and even a smartphone nowadays. And this is whether you're at home, work, or on vacation. So with the right setup, remote operations gives you access to powerful antennas, interference-free locations, and bands you may not be able to use from your QTH. It's an incredible tool for hams living in an antenna-restricted area or those who travel frequently but still want to play on the air. So example, yesterday I was here in Massachusetts and I had my little 705. I was testing out a new headset, and I just was spinning the dial and heard a really good station out of Ohio. And so I, keyed up on it, and I just listened to him for a while. It was to see what type of contacts he was making. And I thought, well, I'm going to fire up my place in Wisconsin, and I'm going to remote back into that. So I plugged my new headset into the iPad, and this is a Radio Sport RS55. It's a phenomenal headset. It's got a boom mic on it. And so I fired up the iPad, remoted into the station, and tuned down to that frequency where he was at, and around 20 meters. And I gave a shout out, and he said, "Wow, where are you coming from?" You're like, "Well, Minnesota or Wisconsin, got a great signal." And so anyway, he goes, "Yeah, you got great audio with it and everything." And so it was just a lot of fun to hop on there and do that. And I probably could have done it from my little 705 here in Massachusetts as well, or hopped onto the bigger station there. But I wanted to be able to remote into my other station and see how the antenna was. So how does this remote operations work? Well, I kind of explained it a second ago, but you have to have a physical station with a transceiver, an antenna, and a stable internet connection. And once you have that equipment, you can pretty much do this through, I know, ICOM, Flex, Yaesu, probably even a Kenwood. I think there's some people who've been doing Kenwood for many years. I don't know how they're doing it for Kenwood, but there may be some software out there for that too. But you got programs like Remote Hams. You have also RHR, Remote Ham Radio. That's more of a service that you're going to pay for. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Smart SDR for FlexRadio. And apparently Ham Radio Deluxe allows users to control the station from a remote device as well. I have Ham Radio Deluxe, but I'm not familiar with that feature of it. So if you're familiar with that, leave a comment in the show notes. I'd love to hear more about that, or if you have somewhere to direct me towards that. But for the most part, I've been using the Smart SDR for iOS, for Mac, and with the Flex Radios, and it's working great. And Flex Radios, yes, I work for them, but it's probably one of those things that it's probably one of the better remote radios to go into. Maybe Elcraft might be right up there. They've come a long ways with their stuff as well. So really having a reliable internet connection is your next most important thing that you can have. And why is that? Well, both the host station and the remote device need to have solid internet connectivity to avoid latency or signal dropouts. That's what will kill you in your signal the most. So the other day, my fiber went down or had some issues in Wisconsin, and my audio is real choppy. And it was really hard to maintain that connection. The radio kept dropping out itself just because it didn't have a good signal across the board. So something to be thinking about, more is a lot of the ISPs are also doing a thing called CGNAT, and that can keep you from connecting potentially if you're not seeing your information, your network. It's because of the CGNAT, how they're doubling up on IPs and trying to save, the IPv4 limited number of available addresses. So this is their way of trying to saving it. Now, you may have to set up some form of VPN. If you're using something like a Flex Radio, you'll need to make this a ton instead of a tap VPN. And that has to deal with layer 2 versus layer 3 and getting access to the network. Some services, like they use a tap VPN or like Tailscale, but people have also told me they're able to make that work. So maybe it just might depend upon their network topography. That might make that difference. And I don't know. There's some other VPN services out there that people have used as well. I would stay away from things like NordVPN, things like that. But, use it at your own, wish. But I use OpenVPN, and it's been, kind of an open source. It's been around a long time. I feel like it's very secure, and I had a problem with it yet at this point. So you'll need to do some homework on this and just to see what's going to best fit you. And I wish I could get you the details on this, but unfortunately, this will really be on a case-by-case basis depending on your provider and how you're set up. The other thing we can talk about is Starlink here. All right, how to get a little bit of a drink in there. Starlink is a great source, and that works, but you do have to pay the extra service to get the public IP for Starlink. And if you have a service like Charter or some type of broadband where you can get a static IP, that is your most ideal. Sometimes you'll pay $5, $10, $15, $20 more for that static IP, but you can get one. Just ask your service provider more about that. I used Starlink for almost a year, and it worked really well. Starlink's changed their plans a little bit, and so you may want to look at that and figure out what's your best plan. How much are you willing to pay for that to make that happen as you start to use data across the board. And if that's your only connection is just to the radio and you're not running cameras or other things, that might be just fine. So the next part, number 4 of a key component and whatnot, is rig control and audio management. Software solutions, you want to ensure that you have a smooth control of your frequency, your power levels, and digital modes like FTA, Aridi, CW. Some software like AnyDesk or TeamViewer may or may not allow the audio to work on a free version. I know TeamViewer does not. And I think I even have a commercial version, and I don't have, I guess I do get audio across that. It's Splashtop that I have the commercial version for, and that does not provide audio across the board. I have to pay additional money to get the audio to come across. So you may have to upgrade, to a paid subscription plan, to a service, something like that. It could be, $200 or $300 a year potentially, but if that's what makes to make your operation successful and you're able to make the contacts using that remote station, then maybe, TeamViewer, Splashtop, AnyDesk, something like that might just be your key. I had some good coffee this morning. So again, this will depend on your equipment. You can operate remotely via web browsers, dedicated desktop software, and now, Smart SDR for Mac or iPad iOS is available. And let's see if I have, I'll talk more about that in just a moment, a little bit more, some software, other software you can grab into. So I didn't want to get ahead of myself on that. So what are the advantages of remote operations? And, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the overcoming the HOA and antenna restrictions. If you're in an HOA, they're a pain in the ass, and they aren't going to provide much leniency for you to have some big antenna out back or some beam, up above your house. There's just no space for an antenna. Some people have figured it out with wires and gutters and attics, which is great, and that works out for them very well. But it doesn't really give you a great option to do much for remote operations. So if you don't have no space for an antenna, no problem. You can operate from a remote station with even better capabilities, get more height, probably better antennas, and that is the major advantage for an HOA person. If you're using a software, if you're living in an HOA and you're using software like remote ham radio at $20 or dollars a month or something like that, plus all your airtime minutes, that could add up pretty quick. I think I could get into that a little bit later as well. Access to better propagation. Log into a station in a different part of the world that can take advantage of band openings that aren't available in your local area. So if you're Midwest or West Coast and there's a big 6-meter opening over in Maine or New York area, then there would be a really great opportunity for you to remote in and make some good station, 10 or 6 meter contacts potentially using a remote station of some sort. So maybe you have a friend out in that area that can do it, and that would be awesome. I was able to go from Wisconsin into my remote station back in Massachusetts and operate 13 colonies. It wasn't necessarily based on propagation, but it was just another way for me to get back into another station, another part of the country. So if you have a friend that has one, and I don't want a bunch of friend requests coming across, but it's one of those things that you can certainly access that propagation depending on where they're at, and you might be able to take advantage of that. You can stay active while traveling. It's like, oh man, I can't carry my FTDX 101 with me. It's just too big to travel with. And so whether you're on a business trip or vacation, you can still bring your, all your ham radio gear with you, right in the palm of your, phone or your iPad even, or just a simple laptop. That's how easy it is to remote back into the software nowadays. And we'll get into that in just a minute again, like I said a second ago. So it's so great to be able to operate your station while you're traveling, and it's just a lot of fun. And probably for some people, this is probably the number one, even over an HOA restriction, which I think is probably the number one advantage of remote operations. But a lot of people like operating from high power remote stations with a directional antenna and boosting their antenna score for contest. So that's a big deal for a lot of people. So enhancing your contesting and DXing, trying to get those DXCC awards, things like that, that's a huge deal. All right, so those are what my thoughts are for that. Setting up your own remote station. There's a number of steps here we need to go through and review and talk about. And this has been quite a process for me, and I knew where I wanted to go with this from the very beginning. But the first thing you need to figure out is a transceiver, and can you access it remotely? So there's some radios like FlexRadio, Elecraft, K3, K4s, ICOM 705, the ICOM 9700. I don't know about that one, but I know the ICOM 7760. They are designed with remote operation in mind, and those are really good radios to be able to do that with. And you can operate from a lot of other radios nowadays too, because of things like remote ham radio, or is it ham radio remote? Maybe is a service that's more on a Windows based only, but you can. It's called remote hams. There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Is my notes right below just what we're getting ready to go into. So with programs like remote hams, you can use a lot of other different radios as well, but those are your main radios that are really designed with remote operation in mind. So you got programs, like I said a minute ago, a Smart SDR for Windows or for Mac, Ham Radio Deluxe. You got, now there's programs out there, if you check out websites like K4 Control for Elecraft, FT Control for Yaesu and ICOM, and I think there's an FT Control also for Kenwood. So those programs, the FT Control or the K4 Control, those two programs right there in itself are ideal for your other carriers other than using Smart SDR for iOS or Windows for all your Flex radios. So again, remote hams, I've got a friend who says, hey, I've got a station, you want to log into it, just let me know. I can get into that and use it. And I'd like to be able to set him up with the capability to kind of reciprocate that, and I can remote it my station, but I can't use remote hams with my Flex radio that I'm aware of at the moment. Well, maybe I can. Let me take that back. I probably can. I just don't want to because it goes into a Windows system, and I don't like Windows. So I'm staying out of that one. So that's why I've not really took him up on his offer. But I do think it's a cool program, and a lot of people do like it. Now, configuring remote power and antennas, remote power switches, antenna tuners allow you to control your station without being there in person. And a lot of loggers now create a TCP/IP connection to control your rotor remotely. especially if you're using a device like Green Heron. And yes, while it is a bit expensive, but it's packed with a lot of great features and capability. And of course, I had owned one myself, and I created a VPN on my laptop to tie back into the local station, where I can then use the logger program like I was right there on site. And it gives me an opportunity to make a local connection to the rotor server and connect to the antenna direction for me, and I can change that right within my logging program. So, I mean, it sucks if the internet's not there. I'm not gonna be able to connect to my station. I fully get that. And if something goes down, then I'm not gonna be able to make that change. But, you know, as long as I've got internet access, this is a great setup. Now, you know, what I haven't figured out yet is if I have more than one rotor control I need more than one rotor controller. I'll need one for the beam, one for the hex beam. And so it might get interesting how I can switch between those two. Maybe I just have to type in a different IP address and connect to it. But I'll explore that more as I get the other controller set up from now. And that may be 6 months or more down the road. We'll see. Even though the tower may be going up end of August with the rotor on top, I may just have to set that to a direction and call it good for now. And when I get the other rotor controller, I'll figure out how to connect that up. We'll see. And I kind of mentioned this already, but the use of VPNs or secure remote desktop solutions, you want to keep those safe, your usernames, your passwords, from any unauthorized access. And that way you can keep and control what's there. There is a new program coming out called iShare and I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be capable across all radio platforms, ICOM, Yaesu, Flex, whatever it might be. And you can have one administrator and share your radio with, 3 or 4 friends if you want. And I'm really looking forward to that coming out and seeing how that's going to play into things and how that's going to work out. Should be beta testing here, maybe September, October. And this could be released potentially by end of the year, but we'll see where that goes. So, but that's going to be coming out as a new program, a new beta program here very soon, and very much looking forward to that, making that work so I can kind of utilize that myself. Don't know what the cost of it's going to be or anything yet, but there will be a cost to it. Just not sure where that's at. Testing your setup, and when you're done, test again. Before relying on, this setup for serious contacts, run tests to ensure your radio audio quality and signal latency, your frequency control are all working smoothly. When you're done, test it again. And, maybe have a buddy log in remotely if you can and see if it's working while you're still on site, because I know people who have, mine is currently 1,200 miles away from me. There's others that I know that it can be an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours away. And when your remote station is that far away and something goes wrong, it's not easy to get back out to that location to set that up. So you want to ensure that your settings are done and confirmed. And, it's very possible that things could change along the way. A rainy day, maybe somewhere in the connection from the ISP, there's a connection loss. May have taken on moisture, or maybe the ISP goes down, and all this can affect your connection. And you may not realize that that's the issue right away. There's, does, something break along the way? Did you have a power shutdown? Did something not fire back up right when it was supposed to restart? Whether it was the computer or the radio, did the radio try to do an update of some sort and got lost in the broken connection? And so you can't access the radio anymore through the remote site. Do you have a way to PTT that radio or shut that radio down in case it got hung up on something? There's lots of things to think about that could go wrong. So as much as I'm saying test your setup, that it's true on my case, and working a help desk with issues where people have these type of problems, yes, it happens. So also another thing to think about is run your ISP speed to ensure you're getting what you're paying for service. And I think that's very important. So anyway, those are things to think about in your setup, is that you need to control the best you can, and just make sure you've got, everything working on site before you leave, because these are so far apart sometimes, and such a distance to get there. Well, Starlink is a great service as well, and many people use it for remote access to sites that do not have internet available, up on mountainsides and everything else, up on hill sites that you just may not be able to easily get to. And I think a lot of people are checking out this new Starlink Mini. I've heard that it's possible you can get up to faster speeds, up to 400 megabytes per second with it, I believe. And so that's pretty cool. And I'm really liking that. I'm not willing to change my second generation out for it, but it is, something worth considering. And I think the reasonable price of it is pretty decent every month, for like $65 or something like that. I mean, it's really dirt cheap to be able to have that on hand overall. So, and I think you can suspend the service temporarily if you need to for a couple months or at a time, and then bring it back and then just resuspend it. So, if you had to do that, twice for 1 year, you're looking at $130 or something like that. But overall, not bad to be able to have that available to you if you need it and want it. So that's a great way to go. Well, let's take a break here, but don't go anywhere. We've got more to talk about on remote ham radio operations coming right up right after this word from ABR Industries right here on the Ham Radio Guy.
Looking for top quality cables that you can trust? ABR Industries has you covered. Proudly American built and reliable, ABR Industries delivers premium coax cable and connectors for all your communication needs. Whether you're a ham radio operator, work in broadcast, or manage critical infrastructure, ABR ensures that you are connected when it matters most.
And it has such tremendously different characteristics.
From static to clarity, ABR products. Built tough, built here, built for you. ABR Industries. American built and reliable. Visit abrind.com today and experience the strength of superior connectivity. It's the only coax here in the W0MET Ham Shack. Use code SAVE10 Ham Radio Guy. ABR Industries, where reliability meets performance.
Welcome back to the Ham Radio Guy, and I'm excited to have you listening. Before we continue the discussion, again, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our patron supporters. Again, you make this podcast possible, and be sure to follow us over on social media for all the latest updates, exclusive content, and a peek behind the scenes.
And now we return you to our regular scheduled program in progress.
All right. So going into the final segment here, not ready to set up your own remote station yet? No problems. I discussed a service like Remote Ham Radio earlier, RHR, and they offer a subscription-based access to world-class stations. Again, this can be an expensive option, but many folks do subscribe to this service. You can pay like $1.25 a minute for some stations, but W2RE has built some of the world-class stations that have a dream antenna setup. These stations are located in optimal locations with excellent antennas, giving you the ability to work rare DX, participate in contests, or simply enjoying operating from a better equipped site. Now, let me take this into another step forward here. If you don't have a full space for a full station, and there's remote ham radios and some most services offer easy and powerful way to stay active on the air. But I would say be prepared to hand over your credit card. Think about this scenario for a minute. Imagine 1 hour at $1.25 a minute, you're operating that remote station, and you're doing that for 60 minutes. That's $75. So that's simple math. Okay. fine. I'll go have fun with it. I'll do it for $75 for 1 hour to go play. But imagine operating a 4 to 6 hour contest, and that's on the shorter side of most contests. This could become several $100s. I didn't take the opportunity to figure out what that math was because I was afraid to see it myself. But, you know, if you add that up, that's definitely going to be, you know, getting $300 to $400 easily through that time period. So maybe even a little bit more. Now, I have taken the opportunity to log into remote ham radio before, and I did try it for a month and operate it several times. If you paid like $20, you got like, I don't know, call it 20 minutes of airtime free or something like that. And I was able to operate it several times and try and figure it out and just kind of try to figure out their software and how this all worked. Didn't make many contacts that I remember, but it was fun to play around with, and it's really cool to see. And I don't think maybe even the bands were that great when I did it. But again, that was quite a while ago. That was probably sometime not quite a year ago here. I can think of when I started that service. I paid about $20 to really start it up and just play with it. And it was okay, but it seemed like I had very limited capability on the plan that I had. It was, basic 101 service. So it also limited the number of stations that I could get into as well because of the plan that I was on. But I wanted to try it out more than anything. All right, so let's go into some challenges and considerations as I break this up into the final segment. Well, again, I think remote operations is very exciting, and I do find it to be a lot of fun, and it's cool. In fact, one day I was in Wisconsin, and I remote back into my Massachusetts station, and I could hear it. And so I try to make contact with myself basically on the other end. And it's like, wow, I can hear myself very well, making good contact back into Massachusetts, which is pretty cool. So I knew things were working well. And it's also really, I was about testing out and monitoring the audio coming out of the radio as I was trying to make some settings and adjustments to it. So that was a cool way for me to play with it as well. And that was just one of the tools per se that I was using it for one day. Again, I mentioned this earlier for some considerations and things to think about was the internet latency and dropouts. A weak or unreliable internet connection can impact your ability to transmit and effectively and listen and have that choppy audio. So that's always a downside to it, I think. Licensing and legal considerations. Some countries have restrictions on remote operations, so always check your local regulations. Here are some examples that I've been able to pull offline. So the FCC says the remote operation is allowed as long as the control operator is properly licensed and the station follows all rules regarding identification and control. This comes out of the FCC control operator and control point, which is clearly defined in Part 97 of the rules. United Kingdom, remote operations is permitted, but the operator must ensure all licensing conditions are met, including station location and identification. So very similar to ours, not much different. Now, I do have some other listeners that listen to all over the world, and so I'm only going to name a few of these. I got two more. India, remote operation is not commonly permitted, and there are requirements around its station location and control. So you have to specifically check if you're in India what those setups can be and what that consists of. Japan, found this quite interesting. Japan has stricter controls. Remote operation with Japan is allowed under specific conditions, but remote control from outside the country is generally prohibited without special permission. So, just something to think about. Different countries have different rules. If you're going to operate remotely or try and think you're going to operate from home or back to home when you're visiting a country, you may just have to know what that rule is for remote operation and what that looks like. So just food for thought, something to think about, kind of interesting as well at the same time. Security risk. Obviously, protect your station from unauthorized access by using strong passwords and VPNs, protecting your username and security. Again, iShare radio coming out. That may be something you want to look at for having, your 2 or 3 friends remote into your station and look at and use. But when you do that, you also have to maybe figure out a schedule or a time plan that each of you will be in on that station working, and when that will be. So if you're in there and your buddy, Bob or Larry decided they want to come in and operate, and you're operating, whose schedule it's your station. Maybe it's your buddy's house. Who really has the priority of the schedule to be able to work that? Is it because you're already on there, you get to work it, even though he wants to hop in at that time and do it? Can you set up some other type of operation? How's that going to work out? Something to think about as well. So if your buddy's house, or if you 2 or 3 people, maybe it's a club station. Do you have a schedule that you have to follow to be able to know when you can operate? And you have to sign up for it, time in advance. So something to think about as well for some considerations of scheduling when you have multiple users involved. And then again, depending on your setup, minor delays in audio transmissions, CW, things like that, latency that can happen with audio. All right. Some closing thoughts here. So I think remote ham radio is an exciting way to expand the hobby. I love it. It gives me the opportunity to operate my radio from anywhere. I have an internet connection, and whether it's my own station or another station of somebody else's station, this technology makes it more accessible than ever. In fact, I had a friend who let me borrow his station for a while and connect to it every once in a while. He worked overnights, and so I could connect to it during the day a little bit, and it didn't bother him at all. And I was able to play with the FlexRadio a little bit more. So that was cool. And if you haven't tried remote operations yet, I think now is the perfect time to do it. Check out resources like Remote Hams, Smart SDR, Remote Ham Radio, and take your experience to the next level. It is a phenomenal thing to have. And when I get some more towers and antennas set up in my place in Wisconsin, this is going to be an incredible way to access. And then just figuring out how I'm going to change antennas is my next biggest thing remotely through some type of utility that I can do that on the iPad, and whether it's what radio it's going to be connected to. So anyway, it's an absolutely blast to do. It's a lot of fun, and it's cool just to see what you can do at times. So anyway, that is my thought on remote operations and some things to think about as you set yours up, or if you want to look at setting one up and what that really involves. Well, a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters for making the Ham Radio Guy podcast possible. Your contributions help keep the content coming and the mic's on. If you're looking for all things ham radio, visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/the ham radio guy, where you'll find the exclusive content, product reviews, exciting blog posts, and so much more. Well, if you want to stay up with the latest trends and tips in ham radio, we've got you covered. And, stay tuned with us. Thanks again for being a part of this community and helping us share the love of ham radio far and wide. Well, as I said in the last episode, making more of the Hamfest schedule, more of the kind of events schedule across the board. And so you can always check out the ARRL Hamfest schedule page for a local Hamfest near you for more information. But this week we'll bring you the Middle Tennessee Hamquest, July 19th. And that's in Lebanon, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. And it's a great little Hamfest, not bad at all. It's been going on for 10 years this year. The ISS SSTV event started with the AX4 crew, started July 14th. So that was just one day earlier here. And you still have time to get plenty of photos from that. So hopefully that'll be another good event you can work on and use and look at getting pictures from the ISS. I'll have to pull out my tools again and take a look at that and how that works. It's been a little while since I've done some of those images. Well, that's it for this episode of the Ham Radio Guy. Thanks for tuning in and being part of the conversation. Don't forget to share your thoughts, questions, or stories. Email me or connect on Twitter and Patreon. If you enjoy the show, leave a review, share it with a fellow ham, and help grow the community. And if you're enjoying the podcast, consider supporting us over on Patreon. And your support helps keep the show running and allows, even more great content. So until next time, 73 and happy hamming. Keep those antennas high, the signal strong, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Ham Radio Guy. Take care.